Welcome back. Former President Donald Trump is due back in a Manhattan courtroom later this morning as his criminal hush money trial resumes after being off yesterday. Today could very well be the trial's last day of testimony as the defense continues its cross-examination of former Trump lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen. An NBC News source with direct knowledge of what to expect says the cross-examination will focus on Cohen's past lies, including some under oath, in an attempt to discredit his testimony. Cohen is the prosecutor's final witness, and they are expected to rest their case after the defense is finished. Trump's team said earlier this week it may not call any witnesses. Trump's attorney Todd Blanche told the judge he was unsure if the former president would testify in his own defense. Trump has said previously that he wants to testify, but there's real skepticism about that. Blanche started his cross-examination of Cohen on Tuesday, where he focused on the lawyer's motives for working with prosecutors. Quote, "I was looking for a reduction in the home confinement portion, not just in this, but in the work I was doing," Cohen said. "I did want to be released, yes." Trump faces 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. If found guilty, he could face prison or probation. He, of course, has denied all charges. Joining us now, MSNBC legal analyst Charles Coleman. Charles, good to see you this morning. So let's start with what we should expect from this cross-examination. It did begin on Tuesday. It was fairly contentious. What should we look for today?
Well, the truth is, Jonathan, I'm not quite sure because Todd Blanche has been all over the place. I do expect that there are going to be myriad attacks on Michael Cohen's out-of-court statements and some of the things that he has said under oath in court in testifying, both to Congress and during the trial that left him going to jail. I think ultimately those are the things that the prosecution is going to seek to zero in on to try and, again, damage Michael Cohen's credibility in the minds of jurors as someone who should not be believed.
And you think Cohen has done a reasonably good job so far?
Surprisingly so. He's been extremely composed. He has not necessarily gotten into a space that has been overly combative. He's defended himself, but for someone who we've seen over and over again seem to be all over the place, he has stuck to the script fairly well and I think done a really good job on the stand.
So let's spend a minute or two now assessing how the prosecution has fared to this point. This might be their last witness, and there have been some talk of maybe having a FEC expert come on one last time. We're not clear if that's going to happen or not. But do you, in your estimation, do you think, first of all, do they need another witness, or do you think they've done a good job proving their case?
They've done a good job. I don't necessarily know that I would have ended on Michael Cohen. I think I would have stacked the order a bit differently. But at the end of the day, the case you have is dependent on the facts that you're working with. I think that the issue that the prosecution may have is that this is a legal theory that is a little bit complicated. Hush money, hush payments, those are not illegal. NDAs are not illegal. So explaining to the jury exactly what Donald Trump is being tried for may ultimately be a problem for the prosecution. But given what they have, I think they've done a solid job.
Okay, so let's talk about the defense's strategy. The Todd Blanche, as just noted, has not committed to calling any witnesses. What do you make of that?
Well, what I can tell you is that he's not going to try and give the prosecution any sort of sense of who may come to the stand so that they can prepare even more than they already have. He doesn't want to show his hand any earlier than he has to. I also suspect that because of his client and how difficult his client is, he's getting a lot of pressure internally to try and put Donald Trump on the stand. And he's also working with his client and trying to convince his client this is a bad idea. So he's not going to give the court anything more than what they absolutely need, particularly because he doesn't want to give the prosecution any additional advantages. And at the same time, I believe that he's trying to tell his client, you do not need to take the stand, even though it is your decision to do. You would be snatching an acquittal from the jaws of a potential mistrial.
So we should, as it sounds like we should not rule out the possibility of a witness or two appearing for the defense. But let's talk a little bit more about the idea of the former president being on the stand. We know that he has, shall we say, a challenging relationship with the truth. So he'd be real open to perjury, perhaps. But it sounds like your assessment would be he would just do more harm than good to his own cause.
Absolutely. I think at this point, the prosecution has done what it can to lay its case out. And there's still the potential that you might end up with a juror who doesn't buy it beyond a reasonable doubt. That gives them an opening for a potential mistrial with a hung jury. If Donald Trump takes the stand, he significantly decreases the opportunity for that to take place. And so I think that would be a terrible idea and something that could potentially tip the scales really decisively in the favor of prosecution.
So if things do wrap up today with the witnesses, court off tomorrow, closing arguments next week. Could we have a verdict in about a week's time?
We could. It could take longer. I think that a quicker verdict speaks very, very favorably toward the prosecution. The longer that we go, I think that that should be an indication to most people who are observing that this could end up in a potential mistrial in favor of Donald Trump.
So let's take a step back here as a final note. This, of course, is just one of the 4 criminal cases facing Donald Trump. But is it your estimation, and we're still waiting to hear from the Supreme Court, but is this going to be the only one that comes to trial between now and the election?
You know what, Jonathan? I have said, and I do believe that this is likely the most ever we are going to see around Donald Trump facing accountability in a criminal court of law, at least before November. Depending on what happens in the election, we will then know the fate of the federal trial, but certainly the federal trials, but certainly as it pertains to anything taking place before November, I think this is it.
All right. MSNBC legal analyst Charles Coleman, thank you so much for being with us here on set. We really appreciate it.